So the next thing we have to talk about comes up every week multiple times on Reddit, and that's just the toxicity in dungeons. So this
I think that this is an integral part of the community, and I love it. I think that watching people have a mental meltdown disorder over the dungeons improves my player experience. This guy said, why is everyone leaving the current state of Throne and Liberty? Ooh, lots of downvotes. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Why is everyone leaving? And then, by the way, the thumbnail for this video, clickbait, I don't know about that. Thumbnail for this video. So, clearly he's implying that Throne and Liberty is dying and what's going on with Throne and Liberty. My personal take on this before I see this is, obviously there was a lot of hype when the game released, and now the game's starting to calm down and it's coming down to its normal player baseline. I don't think it's actually hit the normal player baseline quite yet. Steam charts, Throne and Liberty. Let's see. Honeymoon phase is over. Yeah, I mean, like 10 minutes ago, there was 36,000 people playing, 58K, 24-hour peak. That's pretty good, right? That's pretty good. Right, but like it's kind of on the way down to like figure out what the like where it's actually going to rest. And I think it's probably going to rest somewhere in the 20,000s, hopefully. I think it's going to rest somewhere in the 20,000s, but we'll see. But my take on it is that, like, well, people are just, you know, relaxing. They're out of the honeymoon phase and like they're moving on to other games. But I think that Throne and Liberty is going to have a dedicated player base that will play it for a long time, though. But we'll see what he has to say. The rune grind is so cool. I don't know if cool is the word I would use to describe it. I think that runes are pretty well designed overall, but I think attaining them is really hard. I watched like 2 guides on it last night. I was like, damn, these are kind of hard to get. And they made it easier too.
Throne and Liberty. It's been nearly 3 months since the global launch of the game. Now it feels like the perfect time to have a look on its current state. If you've checked out the Steam charts recently, you have probably noticed a pattern. The player...
Like, let's be honest. I actually think that this is really good retention. If I'm being like 100% honest here, I think that this is actually really solid. Because normally when you see like a video game, it's like, hold on, well, look at New World. New World is one of the more recent. Boom. All. Yeah, look at that. I don't know. That seems like a pretty steep drop off. 1, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5, Like, I feel like this just... And it peaked at like 1 million, too. So it lost like 900K players in a month. So, yeah.
Base has been consistently declining. Each week we are losing 10 to 15% of the player base.
I'd say that's fair.
Of course, it's a niche game, and it's also normal that players leave after the initial launch hype. But the problem is this...
I think that a lot of players also like still like Throne and Liberty, but they have all their gear, so they're playing a lot less. I think that's the big part to do with it too. I think that players really like the large scale PvP aspects of Throne and Liberty. Siege, for example, is omega fun, and I think probably best in genre. If you're talking about like large scale PvP in the MMO genre, I think that Throne and Liberty Siege is kind of peak, if I'm being real. I need to try Guild Wars 2, like their PvP scene. I haven't tried that yet, but like assuming that it's better than Guild Wars 2, I think it's probably best in genre for large scale PvP in terms of like the minimal amount of lag. The mechanics are pretty cool. It's pretty well balanced. It's really fun. Like it includes like everyone on the server. I think it's just a huge W. I think the Rift and Boonstones could be a lot better designed. I think they're really basic and could, like, I would love to see them make like a team fight game mode where you could team up with other alliances, so like do 2v2s or 3v3s between alliances and compete for objectives, a lot like we used to do in BDO. That was a lot of fun where you have to coordinate with other guilds and encourage like, you know, coordination between teammates. That would be fun. But like, you know, aside from that, I think the large scale PvP systems in the game are pretty solid. And I think that's why people will keep coming back. I just think that a lot of people finish their gear and are just like, okay, well, we're just chilling until the next update. Okay, we're logging in for Siege or whatever. We're logging in for this. And oh, when the expansion comes out, I'll play it again, whatever. I think there's a lot of people that are doing that.
This trend doesn't seem to stop. So what is really driving players away? To dig deeper, I decided to gather perspectives from all kinds of different players. I put up a post on Reddit asking for your feedback. Spoke with people.
Whoa, what was this question? All right, let's see.
Post on Reddit.
So he asked, 3 months in, what's good, what's bad? I mean, I can do that right now. Good. Bad. I think that what's good about the game, the large scale PvP. Fun is super fun to work with your guild and get together. Group content. Awesome, right? Getting together and doing dungeons, or just getting together and doing bosses, open world dungeons, whatever. The game really tries to push you to interact with other players a lot. And I think that's a W, because honestly, again, I'm coming from BDO, so like I basically play a solo player game, right? Like there's no team play, so like it was definitely a breath of fresh air. Bad on the other side of it, not great solo content. So like you could look at this on the other side of it and be like, damn, there's just not enough to do as a solo player. Like, what are you going to go out and do? Your contracts? Those are boring as bro. Contracts are not fun, not well designed content. Nobody logs in and goes, damn, I can't wait to go out and do my contracts today. You're like, oh my God, I got to do my contracts. You know, like it's just not like the solo content in the game is not super great. The tab target, or just the targeting system, is, I think this is the number one factor driving a lot of people from the game. I think that the people say the PvP is garbage, and if you compare it to like Lost Ark or BDO, it is garbage if you're comparing it to the two best in genre games. But if you're comparing it to the other tab target BDOs, excluding the targeting system, I actually think the PvP is really good. Like the graphics look good. There's very little lag overall. I think that like your character moves around a lot. Like you're jumping to players, you're jumping away from players. There's damage over time that works really cool. There's different builds that you can go, right? That's really fun. But I think the thing that people really don't like about the PvP system is the targeting system is it's the worst I've ever experienced in any MMO that I have played. I've played a little Lost Ark. I've played a lot of BDO. I've played Guild Wars 2. I've played World of Warcraft. They all have better targeting systems. I don't know how they can't figure this out. It's just really rough. I think the targeting system is really, really bad. And I think that is the number one thing. If they can't fix that drives people from the game and the PvP in the game, because the game's very centered around PvP. Another good thing, or I guess in the good column, I would say the graphics are great. I think that the people say that the PvP is garbage, but again, I think it's got some of the best PvP in the genre in terms of scale, like the amount of people that show up and do stuff, right? Again, I think most of the reason that people say the PvP is not good, it has a lot to do with the targeting system, or they don't like tab target as a general rule. And like, that's a fair complaint. But I do think that as far as tab target MMOs go, I do. Aside from, again, the targeting system kind of kills it for a lot of people. But aside from that, man, it really does encourage you to get together with your guild. You have a shot caller and call a lot. You can do this 4, 5, 6 times a day. There's a lot of PvP to be had, and you're always working with other players. Like, it's a lot of fun. That's what PvPers want. They want to have to get together, and they want to shit on everybody else. Bad. I miss Terra. Stop. Move on. Stop playing RuneScape too while you're at it. Too much burnout. And this is a big one. I don't like, players don't say it a lot. Usually they attribute it to other things. But I think one of the largest reasons that people quit Throne of Liberty is they just feel like in order to get the most out of the game, they have to play the game as a full-time job. Like, you have to log in. You got to be there at noon for the first bosses. Then you got to be there at 3. Then you got to be there at 6, 8, and 11. Like, bro, you got to be there at every single boss. And by the way, there's a rift in Boonstone too. Let's not forget the Lantern Festivals going on. We got to do that too. Like, if you're playing and trying to get the most out of your play experience, and it is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to be that engaged, to be winning every boss and be there. But like, it's also a lot of work, right? You got to be logged in a shitload, right? I spent $1,000 and still quit because of burnout. Yeah, see, that's my point. Like, I think that the game just, it requires you to be online way too much to get the full experience out of the game. And there's a lot of people that are like, oh no, the game can be played, you can play it passively, just play chill, that's a you problem, you don't have to log in all the time. Those are people that aren't in hardcore PvP guilds. I've run a hardcore PvP guild, I've been in a hardcore PvP guild, I know how they work. And anyone that is literally doing PvP, and by the way, that's the full experience of the game. If you're in a PvP guild and you're like competing for Siege and trying to win Siege and trying to win those world bosses, that's like the best the game has to offer. That's like the best experience the game has to offer, hands down. If you're not doing that, you're missing out on a lot, right? And like those hardcore PvP guilds, they require you to be there all the time. And like even the ones that don't, they're like, oh, you don't have to be at every boss, but you do have to be at 2 of the bosses, right? Or you have to be at like 1 boss. Right? Oh, but you also have to be at Rift and Boonstones. Oh, and you have to be at Siege. And you should do some guild events. And then they say that you don't have to be at everything, and then they kick you because you're not at everything. And I don't necessarily blame them. That's part of the game, right? But like, it's just too much burnout. Players can't handle it. It's the same thing in BDO. We struggle with the same thing. If you're a guild lead in BDO, or you've ever played in a BDO guild, you always struggle with this. And I think it's probably similar for Guild Wars 2 as well. Like, if you push your players in your guild or in your community too hard, they all just end up quitting the game. Like, as much fun as they're having with the game, they just can't keep up, and eventually they just let go. And it's not like a gradual let go, like, oh, I'll just go to less stuff over time. No, it's like you push them too hard, and then they just quit everything and they just don't log in for like a week. Right? It's not good. There's way too much burnout, and you're constantly managing what's going on in the game, and like your player burnout, and there's just not enough players like that are new to the game that you can replace your old players with anymore. So I think a problem that a lot of guilds are running into now is that before, when the game first came out, you had like a recruitment, like you had the ability to recruit. Like there were always new players coming into the game. There's a huge cycle, so if somebody burned out, you just replace them. Now we're reaching a point where there's not very many new players coming to the game, right, in comparison to before, and your old players burn out and you have no one to replace them with. At least no one with fingers, that is. So like you end up bringing less people to Rift and Boonstones. You end up bringing less people to world bosses, less people to Siege, because you don't really want to kick anyone because you know you can't replace them. So like, again, the burnout in the game is way too hard. And I think that there's ways that they can kind of fix this. Limiting the amount of conflict bosses there are in a day helps tremendously. I know that some people would be against, like, oh, no, you can't take away some of our conflict bosses. I actually think that it would help tremendously. I think that if you doubled the loot so instead of like 4 conflict bosses spawning a day, you only had 2 conflict bosses spawning today, and they were within like 2 hours of each other, but you doubled the loot at those bosses. What you've done is you've basically said, okay, you don't have to be logged in for 8 hours. You only have to be logged in for like 2.5 hours now. And more people will show up to the 2 bosses than will have shown up to the 4 bosses. So instead of getting no fights at 4 bosses, you've instead increased the reward for showing up to 2 bosses, and you will get more fights at less bosses, also relieving the burnout that a lot of guilds are facing. So like, that's my opinion. I think that there's very easy ways that they could approach this. They haven't yet, and I think it's blowing out. I think it's burning out their game, or a lot of like their hardcore players. Solid take. Yeah, well, I'm trying. It's from somebody that actually has played a lot of the game. Unless people work on times those bosses are scheduled for. Correct. You know, like you could do, and you could do conflict boss. You could do one in the morning, like one at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, and then do the nighttime boss. Like put them really far apart from each other. That way people could like come to a boss, or like, you know, like not everyone can be at every boss, right? Or like guilds could require, you could be at one of the 2 conflict bosses a day. Okay, well that's stomachable, right? You could do that. You could put the conflict boss right after the Rift and Boonstones too. That way PvPers could just like log in, do Rift and Boonstone, and then immediately go to the conflict boss. Be easy dub, right? That's when most people are online. And then put the other one really far away at like 3 p.m. Right? That way people can always kind of make it to the PvP content for the day, and they don't feel like they're missing out or letting their guild down or whatever. But that's how I would kind of handle the burnout. I think that, again, this issue, I don't know how fixable the tag target system is. I don't. I don't know if they understand why it feels like shit. I don't know if a lot of players understand why it feels like shit. When I run in and I try to target somebody, and I'm sure a lot of people have kind of gone through this, you run in And like you're trying to like click on people individually, because if you press tab, it just doesn't work. You got to click on somebody, then you have to cast a skill, and then like it's not the right person, so you have to like click around because there's a lot of people on your screen. It's really frustrating unless you use it a lot. Like you're not going to understand why it feels like shit, you know. So like it is fixable, but I don't know if they're going to fix the targeting system. This is a super easy fix. This is absolutely fixable. You could reduce the burnout on the game, and I think that it would increase their player retention overall. Honest to God. Honest to God. And I think that you would be surprised how many people would agree with my suggestion to take at least a couple bosses away, increase the rewards at the other conflict bosses, and then like, oh God. A lot of people here is like, oh, thank God. I have to be there every day. Right? Like, or I don't have to be there every hour. You know what I mean? You could also reduce guild events to 2 times a day as well and double those rewards as well. So instead of guild events happening every, 4 hours? So instead of guild events happening every 4 hours, no, they happen twice a day. And that will encourage more people to be at a guild event. You could even make one of the guild events a conflict guild event where people can fight each other. Okay? But like, again, that will encourage more people to go to guild events, and you still get the same amount of rewards, right? Like that would be fine too. Instead, everyone feels like every 4 hours they got to log in and go to a guild event. That's frustrating. That's frustrating. Then players must find time to do things between bosses and other events. Well, no, that's a good thing. I think that, again, when I was playing the game like super hardcore, and I am not playing the game super hardcore right now. I haven't even logged in like a few days because it's been Christmas. I have not logged in. I'm just gonna admit I haven't logged in a few days because it's Christmas. Like it's Christmas week. I didn't log into BDO very much either. But I think that PvP players do want some time to get their dungeons done for the day. I think they do want some time to get their contracts done for the day. There was times when I was like, dude, I would finish the guild event and be like, I have bosses, and I'd go to the guild event, and then I'm like, I have bosses in like half an hour. It's like, I can't, it's not enough time to really do a dungeon, so I just gotta wait. So then I would do the boss, right? And then we would like have the boss breakdown. Then we'd like, oh, we have Riftstone. Oh, now we gotta do that. That's in like 30 minutes. Okay, we gotta do that. Then like the Riftstone, and it's like, oh no, we have guild bosses again. Like, oh, dude, now I gotta do that too. Like, there just wasn't enough time to get my own shit done. I think that players would enjoy having at least a little bit of time to get their own stuff done, whether it be cooking, fishing, contracts, whatever, right? Like people just want to breathe a little bit. People want to play a little bit. I will also say this: it's not a great experience for casual players. And I know that people were on the cope when the game came out. No, it's great for casual players. It's amazing for casual players. It's such a good casual game. It's not. It's not. It's not. Like you miss out on so much of the game if you're not doing a PvP. If you're not doing PvP. Right? It's not great solo. I know it's the first thing on the list. You're missing out on so much of the game if
asking for your.
Damn it, bro. Okay, well. Okay, there we go. I think, again, you're missing out on so much of the game if you're not in a PvP guild and you're not going to those bosses. You're not like competing at like the nighttime dungeons. It's like a big thing, right? If you've never done island PvP, you're really missing out on a lot that I think the game has to offer. And one thing I'm going to put in the pro column is that the game is like, it makes PvP very approachable. Again, I feel it's really easy for a player to get into PvP, right? In BDO, in Lost Ark, there's an extremely steep learning curve. Like, because the PvP systems are so complex in those action combat games, it's really hard for a new player because like they could have all the gear but just have no thumbs and just like, oh god, you know, like they don't know their class perfectly. They don't know what's a super armor, what's a frontal guard, where are my protections, how can I CC? Yeah, right? There's all these things that you have to know. In Throne of Liberty, you can kind of just jump in as someone that's never done PvP before, and you're like, okay, well, I know that these skills do a lot of damage. And because it's got such great large-scale PvP and like working with your guild and stuff and like playing with other players, you have a general idea of what your role is, right? Oh, I'm a healer. Okay, I should lock on to the tank, or I should lock on to the DPSers and heal people, right? So you have a good idea and a good understanding because the game has already forced you to play with other players before. And it's not, the learning curve is not as steep. The PvP is extremely approachable. So like it's not very hard to find like crazy good players. crazy good players in Throne and Liberty aren't necessarily mechanical gods. They're positioning gods, right? When I see a really good player in BDO, they could just be a mechanical god, right? But in TNL, usually it's because their positioning is just that good, right? And you just, you can learn stuff like that. The positioning's not as punishing in this game either, because the targeting system is so bad. You could basically monkey in as a healer and still live. So W there. W there. But anyway, this is my take on why the game is bad, why the game is good. I still love Throne and Liberty. I do not play it nearly as actively as I used to, because I'll be honest, you know what happened to me? This right here. I played guys, leading a guild in this game, and my guild leaders can understand this. Like, other players won't get it. But if you're a guild leader, you probably vibe with this. It's a fucking job, and it's not a job you're getting paid for. It's rewarding, but holy shit. Like, dude, you're responsible for 240 other players' happiness, right? You got to do politics. If you don't stay up at 3 a.m. and get the politics done for Siege, 239 other players are now deliberately going to suffer because you didn't stay up and do that job. A lot of guild masters, they feel the weight of that responsibility, and the good leaders do feel that weight, and they work hard for their communities. They do, and I respect the hell out of it. That's why I'm running the best in guild tournament for the community, right? Let's show everybody who the best is, right? Who's working the hardest for their guild, right? Like, that tournament's gonna be amazing. By the way, let's take a look. Let's do an update. Google Forms. Let me show you guys how many people have signed up for the tournament. Go to Forms. This is the best in guild tournament, guys. This is happening this coming week. There are 31 responses, which means, and there are a couple duplicates. That's why I have this in here. So there's like 28 guilds signed up for the best in guild tournament for 2024 for North America East. Is absolutely incredible. That is a dream turnout for my tournament like that. So like, I am super excited, and I'm scrambling. I'm working my ass off trying to put that on. But like, again, a lot of that is, I know the responsibility these guild leaders have to their communities. And I think more than anything, they want to show everyone how strong they are. So like, I look forward to like helping them bring that to the world. It's going to be super amazing. It's the first time anyone's ever done this. AGS said that no one has ever done a tournament like this worldwide for the game, even in the 2 years that it's been out in Korea, or the year that it's been out in Korea. No one's ever done anything like this before. So lots of fun. Can't wait. That being said, I stopped playing the game super actively, and I don't really feel the urge to go like do the rune grind, because I had to play the game as a job for 2 months. Like, I have another job. It's called content creation, And so instead of playing the game super actively as a player, I decided to play the game super actively as a content creator, or just like be a content creator for the game. I realized I had to choose. And I think that a lot of content creators also realized this. Cannon realized it. He stepped down from leadership basically right away. He's doing a lot less now, right? Like, he's focused more on his YouTube videos now and stuff. He's still making content for the game, but he's had to step away from playing the game as much full time, right? You've also seen Cairn step down from Guildmaster, Fake Uni step down from Guildmaster. I've stepped down, right? Like, pretty much everyone. It's like, you have to choose. You have to be a content creator for the community, or you have to be a guild leader for the community, right? And that's just the way that it goes. And so I burned out and was like, okay, I want to be a content creator first. So that's what happened to me. But I'm still playing the game. I love the game. I log in, right? I do the event stuff. I do my contracts. I do not do dungeons. I've got to do dungeons. Part of the problem is my guild is kind of dead, and I don't really have anybody to do the dungeons with. So I don't really have like a stagnant group. I suppose I could ask people, hey, does anybody want to do the dungeons? But like, I need to do like the T2 dungeons and stuff. But yeah, this is my list about why it's good and bad. I'm curious what you guys think though. Play with chat or goated. Yeah, I think that would be fun too. I could play with chat. That's actually a great idea. I should do that. I'm going to do that this week. That's a great idea.
Feedback. Spoke with people from casual guilds, from hardcore PvP guilds, and even players who've already quit the game. From all these perspectives,
I'm still on Cherno, but it won't matter for dungeons.
Identified the key issues that players currently have with the game, and I will explain those problems with my experience with over 1,000 hours in the game. And of course, I
do not have 1,000 hours played in the game, but I do have over 1,000 hours of doing politics. Players don't understand, and this is my point. If you're not a guild master, they don't understand. They don't get it. Like the hours and hours and hours. I spent more time doing politics and like between my alliance and like trying to make sure siege lined up and everything was going to go well there and like leading the guild than I did actually playing the game.
All of this because I love
politics almost made me quit the game. Exactly, bro. Like it's a thankless job because if you fuck it up or you do something wrong, do you know how many people in your guild are going to be understanding of that? They're not going to care. All they game bad. Fight bad, alliance bad, players bad. Like they're like the dude. Poor Fuego. Don't feel bad for him. He's an idiot. I love Fuego though.
Love the game. I wanted to succeed, but for this we just have to talk about the problems. So the first thing everyone was talking about was the combat. Yes, they did a lot of improvements from when the game was...
Again, I have a hot take on this. I actually think, and again, I think it's because I've played a lot of WoW recently, and I played a good amount of Guild Wars 2, at least to understand how the tab targeting and things work, and the graphics and everything. When you take it all into consideration, I think that Throne and Liberty's combat's actually pretty good. Obviously, you can't compare it to BDO. It does not compare to Lost Ark. You can't compare it to those games. But if you're comparing it to New World, you're comparing it to World of Warcraft, you're comparing it... Guild Wars 2, it's probably... I don't know. Guild Wars 2 might have better combat. But, like, it's pretty solid, though. As far as the genre goes, I actually think it's pretty good. Especially when the Ashes of Never Being Created, right? Like, I guess we can put that on the list now, too. It's way better than that.
Released. And yes, it feels pretty decent in small scale PvP and also in PvE. But the problem starts in large scale PvP where everything often feels so incredible clunky. And there are two problems that have been mentioned from you over and over again. Okay, problem number one. Everyone noticed this after his first large scale PvP fight. And that's just the incredible bad targeting.
There it is.
This is just something that needs to be on the top of their priority list.
They do. If they fix the targeting, I think the PvP experience goes up by like a factor of 2. Not even joking. If they fix the targeting to be as good as it is in World of Warcraft, or even, I guess WoW's targeting is not super great either, but like it's okay, right? Like it's fine. But WoW doesn't really struggle with targeting as much because it doesn't have large scale PvP. For the most part, right? Like there have been some events where the Alliance fights the Horde, whatever, but like for the most part, there's not very much large scale PvP in WoW, and so people don't complain about the targeting as much. But in these bigger games, like it's much more noticeable when you do large scale PvP, right? Like suddenly when you graduate past like arenas, the targeting becomes a serious issue, and so like I think that if they fix this, oh man, their PvP could be so much better than it is. I don't know exactly what their solution is for fixing it. I think that running it from a safe zone, it's really hard to click on and target who you want. The targeting computer, and no, I'm not talking about running a trench run. I'm talking about when I press tab. Like if I'm this guy right here and I press tab in this situation, it's going to target this guy. Or it's going to target that guy. Or it's going to target this guy. It's never, I can tell you right now, it's Taylor Swift ever. It's never who the I want it to target. It's always some rando. Even if there's only 2 people to choose from, the computer will choose the wrong person. Okay? So like they need to fix this. The targeting has to be fixed. Personally, I think that when you press tab, it should probably auto lock onto the lowest target enemy opponent. Right? Or if you're a healer and you press like control tab or whatever you should lock onto the lowest targeting or lowest health ally. Like,
because this is so frustrating to play.
Yeah, it's never who is closest to you either. Yeah, like it's just random.
See out of the window sometimes. So even if you have the perfect settings, it just
you can see he's manually clicking on this.
It's so incredible clunky. And for a tap target MMO, not being able to consider.
Yeah, you see how he can't click the person that he wants to. He's like, God damn it!
Distantly and easily select targets is just not acceptable.
So annoying.
Okay, problem number 2, and this has been mentioned by everyone I was talking to, and has been also mentioned by you guys plenty of times on Reddit, and that's just the sheer amount of CC that's currently in the game.
I think that they've taken, I'm going to give them a little bit of credit here. I think that they've already, like, sleep was like a much bigger problem than tornado was before. It's like sleep was really bad. Sleep was an issue. And I think for the most part that they've kind of fixed sleep and they put it in a reasonable position now. And I think that as long as they fix tornado, I think that most of the game is going to be fine beyond that point. The problem is if they remove the tornado, I think this is where the developers come from, because you have to see it from their perspective as well. I think that if they fix Tornado, they don't feel that guilds have an accurate way to A, control a choke point like in Siege, or B, engage or disengage appropriately. Okay, so I think that what their reservation in nerfing the Tornado is that, like, well, you're gonna take out a large dynamic of like engagements in the game, and I would discourage them from that thinking. I think that they should only allow Tornadoes to CC someone for a maximum of 2 seconds, probably. I think that that is fine. I think that being CC'd in a Tornado for 8 seconds is not fun. It's not interactive, and it doesn't encourage gameplay at all. Okay, losing control of my character for 2 seconds is already annoying enough. 2 seconds is long enough. It should not be allowed to stack. There should be a 5-second interval. It should be, okay, you get 2 seconds of CC, and then you get 5 seconds of invulnerability. Okay, and then you can be CC'd for 2 seconds again. Literally just that simple. Okay, makes it really simple. Everyone can wrap their head around it. BDO has that system. Plenty of other games have a system that's just like this, or very similar to this. When you allow people to knock people into the air twice, 3 times, 4 times in a row, it does not feel fun. And it's the least fun. It's the second least fun part of their game. He's right.
And here the best example.
Oh yeah, and the CC trinket, does it work for knockdown or knock up? Yeah, that's a simple fix as well. Yeah, but I just think that I'm okay with the trinket not working as long as it can only happen for 2 seconds. I think that you can still get massive engagements off. It actually encourages stronger guild play and interaction if you can only get a 2-second engage off, right? If a guild has to execute super well so that their flankers hit in that 2-second window, I think it helps encourage people to be better players, and it increases the skill ceiling of the fight overall. I do. Also, knowing when to use your tornadoes and putting your tornadoes into like groups, right? Also important. Also important.
Is of course the tornadoes from the bow. This skill alone just kills all the fun of GVGs and large PvP, especially for melee players. And in combination with the targeting system, it's often such a clunky and frustrating experience. Either you are getting knocked up consistently in the air, or the players that you are trying to hit are getting knocked up.
Yeah, see, he's knocked up again. So frustrating.
You can itemize against it. But in this clip you see I have 580 collision resistance, and I'm still getting knocked up into the air 4 times in a row. Like, this just makes you want to just stand up and jump out of the window. And yes, there are currently a lot.
That was a good little gif. I liked that.
A lot of things really bad, and they are really hard to fix. But here you can just simply remove the skill specialization of the tornado. No one likes it, and it doesn't.
What's the skill specialization of the tornado? Forgive me. What is the... I know the tornado skill. I don't know what the specialization actually says. It makes it the tornado. Oh. Well, no, I don't think that you should remove it. It oils you up. Okay, buddy. It's the spec. Okay, all right, no. I don't think that the solution is ever to... I hate it when they just... Devs are like, yeah, we're just going to remove the option for players. Oh, that's really annoying. I don't like that. It's not fun. People make their builds around stuff like this. Like, it's not fun. So, like, I do not think that removing it is the play. I think that only allowing one tornado to hit every 5 seconds, basically. If like, oh, a big tornado went off, understanding that your tornado, if you put it out right now, it's not going to work again. You have to wait 5 seconds and they'll be able to be CC'd again. I think that's a fine way to do it. I do not think that removing it... You should never really encourage your developers to just flat out remove something from the game, unless it's shy because we hate children.
Doesn't benefit the game at all. Well, the game experience for everyone would be just better if the skill specialization would be deleted.
I don't think people would be cheering. I think that people would be upset. I think that, and I think that, would people want to change? Yes, but the amount of negative impact that change would have would outweigh the positive impact, and I think that it would be received negatively by the community overall. Whenever you remove a mechanic from the game, it does not feel good.
But besides that, there are just currently so many CC spots in the game,
at least in this
and
case.
The problem with that is that the visualization of the CC is often really, really bad. And that's just really frustrating because your brain is not realizing that you are actually CC'd. So if you're in a fight and you're getting CC'd and you don't know...
Yeah, see, there's the big sleep. Do you see how much more of a problem sleep was? Because it would just CC you for like 10 minutes.
Why
you just go get a cup of coffee, to be honest. Unless Grenton's on the enemy team, in which case he'll wake you up right away for his homies.
can't move, then it just feels overall really clunky. Your brain needs to immediately understand that you are CC'd. I have no clue how they can fix that, but it's a huge problem. So the combat in general is really not bad, but when it comes to targeting and the CC, there just needs to be a lot of improvement.
I love Grit.
And some of
guys, if I'm making fun of you, it's because I love you. Okay? And if you can't take it, then you deserve what you get.
them are just really easy, and it would help just to reduce a lot of the current clunkiness. Okay, so the next thing we have to talk about comes up every week multiple times on Reddit, and that's just the toxicity in dungeons. So this
I think that this is an integral part of the community, and I love it. I think that watching people have a mental meltdown disorder over the dungeons improves my player experience. I don't know. There's just something about it, you know? Like, dude, like, as somebody that sits there and is, like, part of the problem for the tier 2 dungeons, because I don't understand all the mechanics yet, I'm personally sitting there, I don't know about you guys, but I'm sitting there like, come on, say a gamer word. Come on, say a gamer word. Come on, call me the F word. Come on, do it. Do it, N-word, throw it out there. Come on, you can do it. You know, like, because then I can report them, right? And then they're going to get banned. Like, again, it improves, it keeps me engaged more than anything. Like,
this has been a problem since the release of TL. So either by flaming people how bad they are, or telling them how dare they come into a new dungeon without watching a guide up
well, stop sucking
front, or just by simply kicking people out of the group as soon as they made one mistake. And all of that is obviously not nice. And this is what really kills it for a lot of players.
Nobody quits over this kind of shit. People bitch about this. This is not something that people quit over. If anybody tries to tell you that they quit because the dungeon was too toxic, they quit for another reason entirely, and that's what they're blaming it on. Nobody quits for this shit. They get upset, sure, but they're just gonna requeue the dungeon. Who gives a bro?
Especially
also, just go watch a guide, idiot.
New players. We could now simply say, oh, the community of Doran Liberty is just really bad and toxic. But
I'm going to be honest. I think that guys, even the PvPers in this community are overwhelmingly mild. I was expecting far worse from these people. Like, again, my experience as BDO, dude, they're just not saying GG unless there's an N-word. I'm gonna be honest, like the toxic cesspool chat for BDO made me like leave the server because like they would just go in. They're gonna go in on your personal life. They're gonna go in on like the little shit that they think gets to you all the time. They're gonna harass you in Discord. They're gonna harass you in game. They're gonna call you on your phone. I mean, like, bro, they would go. These PvPers, you guys don't understand what toxicity is. I was molded in this shit. I was born in this. Okay, I was fired from my job because toxic PvPers on the internet wanted to be so. Like in real life, like insane shit. The TNL community, bro, I don't mean to call out one alliance in particular, but Soviets Alliance was like, well, they didn't say GG after the fight, so. What the bro, they haven't even said the F word yet. I think we haven't even gotten to the racial slurs. Like, what are we doing? Like, that's not even bad. Like, what the They didn't say GG. Like, what? Come on, bro. Like, they haven't even gotten toxic yet. They haven't said anything, and somehow that's toxic. Oh my God. I think that this community, as far as communities go, is the least toxic PvP community I've ever seen. The Guild Wars 2 community is more toxic than this, and I already know it because of the videos and the shit that I get sent from that community. It's way more toxic than this. Those people go way further in. So does the BDO community. The TNL community, I mean, I'm almost disappointed sometimes. Honestly, God, I'm telling you, bro, in BDO, if some guy that's the leader of a guild in BDO gets caught cheating on his fiance IRL with a e-girl, my homies are going to be eating good. Like that shit. Oh man, I start getting excited, you know, for the toxic chat. I don't say anything. I just sit there and I read it. Cause like, it's like, bro, some of the shit people say, it's just deranged. It's crazy. But like in this, I felt people were pretty tame over the Ethereum thing. I felt that people were pretty tame overall. about just about everything so far in the game. And I'm pretty in touch with what's going on in the PvP scene. Like, at least I like to think I am. But like, damn, bro, this community ain't toxic. Again, the most toxicity you're getting is when somebody calls you trash in a dungeon. And if you can't deal with that, bro, stop playing games on the internet. Just log out. Like, Jesus Christ, bro. What are we talking about?
I think that
you can't even pretend that you're young, because young people love it more than anyone. Like, you're just like, I don't know. You're just complaining to complain because you suck and you want to blame it on them that they're toxic. It's not your fault that you're missing fingers and didn't look up a guide or whatever. It's got to be their fault because they're toxic. Well, sure, yeah, I didn't do my job in the dungeon, but they're toxic. Shut up. We'd be done right now with the dungeon if you had just shut up and done your job.
Just a really stupid take, and it's just simply not true. It's as stupid as saying that League of Legends players are more toxic than Counter-Strike players, or vice versa.
I think that League of Legends players are absolutely more toxic than Counter-Strike players, because Counter-Strike players are typically, you know, they're going to call you the N-word, they're going to call you a slur, right? And then they're going to go to school the next day and they're going to talk to their friends about how good they are in the second period, okay? League of Legends players will call you a slur, will call you anything that they want, and then they'll go to their career that they've been working at for the last 15 years the next day. Is a grown-ass adult. Like, I think that League of Legends is more toxic because the player base is older than Counter-Strike. It's just, the player base is older than Counter-Strike, and because of that, they're much more creative with the ways that they're going to be toxic to you. You know what I mean? Like, and I'll be honest with you, the BDO player base is also older than the League of Legends community. Like, we have people in the BDO community, it's so creative. They'll just post this in the chat. And that's all. That's it. Okay, that's it. They won't say anything else to you. Okay, they'll just let that fester. And I think that this is way better because it like sits on you. You know what I mean? It sits in there. It's good, right? If somebody just calls you a slur, you're like, oh, they're just a mad gamer, right? It's like, okay, whatever. Is it toxic? Absolutely. But like, this is like, dude, you're a complete loser. You have no career. Invest in a job. You know what? Like, this is oof. You know, like you get some big insults in the League community. I see it from them too, because they express themselves in very unique way. They introduced a bunch of pings to the game, and one of them is like a hook, or no, it's a rope. One of them is a rope, and people will ping that on top of you to tell you to kill yourself. In game, of course, like literally repeatedly. They had to change it because players were just pinging each other with it repeatedly. Like, that's creativity. That's toxicity. That shit gets real. You know what I mean? Counter-Strike players, the only thing little kids know how to do is to scream into the microphone and say slurs. By the time that they get to League of Legends, and there's a lot of young people that play League too, but I think on average it's an older player base too. And by the time they get to League, they've developed, like they've like transcended the toxicity, and that's why I think they might have an equal amount of people that are toxic or whatever, but like I think the toxicity in League kind of hits a lot harder than Counter-Strike. Could be wrong about that.
In every game we have a lot of toxic players, but certain games make us just more toxic due to certain systems, mechanics, game features, or missing elements in the game. And in certain games,
I don't know, League of Legends, you get locked into a room with these people for like 45 minutes, and then like you scream at one of the for being, and then they say, oh, Butter Pumpkin, I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me. And I can make this a very bad experience for you. Lock in. You know, like, and that is a brutal realization in League. Like, oh, Jesus, dude, I have to deal with these people for like 40, 50 minutes.
Games can make the nicest person really toxic and rage because certain elements in the game have just
been there. Bro, League changes you into a different person. It does. Like, you're just a completely different... It's crazy.
Bad design. Okay, but in other MMOs, people are not so toxic in
Valorant
dungeons.
too, yeah.
So why are people getting so toxic in TL? One big problem
not.
is that the mechanics can sometimes feel a little complicated, because the game doesn't explain the mechanics at all.
Okay, you are an idiot. Even a dumbass can realize, hey, there's this thing, right? Yeah, that looks dead. That wasn't there before. Hush, I wonder if I should walk over to that. This dude's just going to Wakanda. It's not hard. But like, also, I like the fact that I personally like the fact that the mechanics are difficult. I think it's fun. It makes it more fun to work with people. Like, if the mechanics were easy, it would like they could just like, I don't know, like it'd be like I could play with bots. You know, this is T5, buddy. Well, then who cares? Just let him run around like a rat. But just let him run around like a rat.
Often everyone has a certain job, and if one person fails, this can be already...
My favorite thing is when I say something and everyone like, he's doing the mechanic right, only to get a full wipe moments later. Because they did not, in fact, do the mechanic correctly. It's not even necessarily his fault.
Invulnerable.
It's one of the retards.
Subscribed for 3 months. It's
one of the right. But like, also, I like how hard it is. The fact that they wiped there, deserved. The fact that Steve Rogers was already dead is just lore accurate. Is already dead was just lore accurate. Okay, just the truth.
Devastating, and it's always really hard to understand what you did wrong or what you did right, because so many things are just happening at the same time. It's just
I think it's fun, right? The T5 mechanic being different than the T2 mechanics and the T1 mechanics, and having all of the bosses be challenging, I think is very integral to the game. And I think that there's always going to be some toxicity in there. If you really have a problem with what somebody is saying to you, please just block them and move on with your life. Please do not force the entire game to bend over backwards because you're a snowflake.
Really easy to see when you know how it works, but at the beginning it's just really hard to get.
Desdemonia, thanks for the Prime sub, man.
So this is already not a perfect design. But in addition, I think a big problem is that we have guides for all of those dungeons before they get even released. So people like me just played in Korea and then made guides for those dungeons.
Look at this plug. Guys, by the way, there are guides available. Just watch the guides on my channel.
Before they're even out. So what is happening then is that some players will watch those guides and others won't. And then the players who watch the guides complain on day one about why others don't know how.
Nah, this ain't day one. If I go into a tier 2 dungeon right now, I'm not gonna know the mechanics unless it happens to be the one that I did already. And like, you're gonna say that I suck. Yeah, I get it.
The boss works and why they didn't watch a video. This creates an even more toxic environment. Of course,
it's not
this
that
happened
bad.
now for all 1-star and 2-star dungeons, and it will again happen for all the 3-star dungeons. So the question is, what can they do?
The guides for TL are literally 5 minutes. You know, I started doing shorts for Throne and Liberty as guides, and people really enjoy those. The way I make guides for Throne and Liberty is I just make like a short, I'm like, all right, boys, this is everything you need to know in 3 minutes, boom, or less. Usually 60 seconds, done.
Do. I think they just have to
E-girl, we chopping trees? Unless, if you're Alec, sure.
explain the mechanics somehow in the game. That would help so much. Give the players the possibility to understand the mechanics in the game. Some nice animation, some pictures on how to move and so on. I think that would really help a lot here. And
Subble actually wiped the floor with their server. It took over when they went to Siege today. It was amazing. It is incredible how quickly you're able to actually win when you play the game. Yeah. In fairness, the bar for Supple from what happened last Siege was on the floor. Right? So, like, they would have had a good Siege today had their shot caller just been moving them around. So, like, the bar was low. But also, you could tell that they were a really strong alliance from the get-go because of the way that they got into the position that they got into. Did they fumble really hard on the goal line? Absolutely they did. But you could already tell that they were really strong. They wouldn't have gotten to that position at point 3 where they stood for 40 minutes had they not been already a really solid alliance. All you have to do is actually just not lead them like morons, which, if that happened today, is a good thing. Live up to your potential. Every day you need to try to be the person that your pet thinks you are. That's what I do with Basil.
And take away a lot from the
Yumsy
toxic
just
environment.
resubscribed
Because
for
people
3
could
months. I'm gonna touch you platonically.
Okay.
just quickly understand in an in-game guide what they actually did wrong. So the next topic we just have to talk about are the dimensional trials and the runes. So both
Kind of a
systems
grind.
that just have been recently added. So the dimensional trials are just your mythic plus-like system where you can have up to 30 difficulties of a dungeon. And you do those trials to get your runes. Well, these are just stones you can put into your weapons and accessories, which are important for your current endgame progression. So it doesn't matter who I asked or where I looked for feedback, just everyone was saying something negative about the implementation. Okay, so I love the idea of...
I don't know. I think that they're a reasonable thing. Like, I looked up a bunch of guides for them last night. I just felt like they looked really hard to get. And I was like, damn, I got to do like all of my dungeons for this.
runes. They just give you a lot of options to
The
customize
really
your
hard ones too.
character. And I also really love challenging PvE content. And I really don't want to flame here on the developers or on the game. But this implementation is one of the worst implementations I've ever seen from systems that are actually really, really great. Okay, what do I mean by that? So first of all, you are implementing a system with 30 tiers of difficulty. And of course you want to give the bosses new mechanics. That's of course really important and totally fine. But instead of changing the mechanics of the boss throughout the full 30 tiers, you give them all these new mechanics by tier 5. So the first 2 tiers are super easy. And then you give all the new mechanics the players from tier 3 to tier 5. But if you have master tier 5, then it's always the same until tier 30.
Oh, that's so annoying, dude. This is what BDO does with its calamity levels, and I think it's like the worst thing ever. The only thing that calamity 8 is supposed to be different, but like all they do is they just make the boss spongier and they make it do more damage. Bro, do you think that like From Software became a really big company and like really nailed it with their games because they made their bosses tankier and do more damage? No. They changed the mechanics, like the boss is harder, not because it's tankier, not because it's necessarily doing more damage, but because it's got new mechanics that are tougher to execute and fun. Holy moly. I hate it, dude. Like every run of Calamity 7 and BDO, it takes you like 9 minutes because the boss is a sponge.
And you could see how the majority of the groups were struggling heavily already on tier 3. And this is of course super demotivating if you have 30 tiers and you struggle already on tier 3. And again, remember, there's no in-game explanation and it's really hard to understand what you actually have to do.
Of course there's not going to be an in-game explanation. They don't want to explain it to you. They want you to figure it out. That's the fun part of the content.
They're doing? Right, it creates toxicity. You have a nice system here with 30 tiers. You have
like a
nice
buzzword.
mechanics from the bosses, and you could spread them out.
No
to
one
all
cares
of
about
those tiers
toxicity.
here, giving
Well,
players more and more.
There are people that care about toxicity, but those are the people that we love.
More mechanics with each tier. Players would be able to clear more and more tiers and feel a sense of accomplishment at the end of the day. Wow, today I mastered 4 more tiers in this dungeon. Wow, the people I did the dungeon with were so great. People would just feel happy. And that would...
Same thing happened with Lost Ark? No. What happened in Lost Ark was that everybody complained and was toxic in the dungeons. And what they fixed in Lost Ark was to make everybody that was doing the dungeon with you a bot. And then not only would they literally do the mechanics better than a real person without thumbs, they would also not be toxic to you. So once everybody was playing with bots, the game improved.
be a great design. But instead, the game overloads the players with new mechanics way too early. People
There are no bots in dungeons? It was a joke.
just get frustrated
Because Lost Ark had a lot of bots in it.
and quit the game. If they want to make those systems more accessible for everyone, they need to make here definitely changes in the future.
Also, definitely bots doing dungeons. Not even a question. There are bots doing dungeons in Throne and Liberty. All the time. All the time.
Okay, now let's talk about runes, which are currently just a huge part of your endgame progression. With the most recent update they just released, you can farm runes now also decently in other ways than just the dimensional trials. But if you have tried it, you will quickly notice that the rune gain is really low until you...
I haven't seen bots in TNL in a month. That's true. I haven't seen very many bots in TNL. And I gotta give them credit. There was a big bot problem and everyone thought it was gonna kill the game. And I think that they jumped on it, man. They've been kind of destroying the bots. That or they walk among us and we don't know. They've gotten smart enough to be like sentient. One of the two things is happening.
Level your runes to level 60, Amazon will already release level 80 runes. So when it comes to farming runes, the best way is by far still dimensional trials. And if you want to stay competitive as a PvP player, you need runes. But the only way to effectively farm runes is hard PvE content. And the changes they made with this patch were already really good and going into the right direction. But that's just not enough. A PvP player should be able to farm runes just with PvP content. So many PvP players...
We had this problem in BDO too. They just refused to make fun or good rewards for PvP content. Although I think that TNL is better about giving rewards for PvP content, I think that they should just add runes to PvP content too. I would do it. If the option is go do a 3v3 arena, like any X number of times or whatever, or go do the dimensional trials, I'm going to do the PvP.
Players just quit the game because they are forced to do PvE content. And that's just not some dungeon farming. This is
They
really
did, but it's only greens.
PvE
Yeah, that's my point though.
content. I think it's good that this whole rune farming is a grind, which is totally okay. But the content needs to be fun for the players. For PvE players, grinding for weeks or months in hard dungeons is fine. But forcing a PvP player to do that is of course not okay. They of course need PvP content where they can farm those runes.
He's right about that.
And this farming method should be as effective as going to dimensional trials.
So what is the mechanic here at tier 5? One person has to leave the circle and the rest have to stay in this? And you don't touch the crystals at all?
This should be just complete alternative. And players could do what they like to do to farm those runes.
They're cheesing it? Yeah, what the is this? There's 2 new ones. You bounce him side to side. How the Okay, right. I just forgot.
And everyone could be happy.
You have to ping pong with the boss. Oh, okay.
Okay, so don't get me wrong here. Like, these systems are just really great, and I just love both of them. But the implementation of those are just so bad, and we just really quickly need here changes.
Go through it. You need Jesus.
Let's just really hope that this is not too late, because I know for a fact that this is killing the fun for so many players. Okay, now we have to talk about guild, alliances, and PvP. So in Throne of Liberty, the major PvP content is for sure large-scale PvP. So a couple of times a week you have GVGs, so Rift Zones and Boonstones, and then you have with your alliance world boss fights every day and Casa sieges every 2 weeks. From my point of view, the best content in Throne of Liberty is by far the GVGs. Of course, they have also some problems, but overall they are really fun. But
I hate GVGs. Well, I don't hate them. They're not as good as Siege though. I don't know how you could tell me that island PvP is somehow better than Siege. Okay, you're just standing at the grapple point waiting for the enemy guild to make a mistake. Like, bro, one guild sits at the bottom of the grapple point, and then the other guild sits at the top of the grapple point. Whichever alliance controls the grapple point is winning. And this guild has to go get ass farmed to try to take the grapple point, or dive past it and put a like rift, like a guild summon portal behind them and then try to flank them from behind. That's the only mechanic. It's not a good time. Other GVGs were fun, but really world boss PvP was a lot of fun. But I wouldn't call those GVGs. That's world boss PvP. I think he's specifically talking about open world PvP where there's not like an objective right in front of you.
The problem is here that you more or less need...
I think he's referring to Boonstone and Riftstones. Okay, well, the problem with Boonstones and Riftstones is that a ton of the Boonstones are placed in Wakanda. The worst possible place for a Rift or a Boonstone. They're like, let's put it here. It'll make it strategic. Okay? Horrible location. Horrible locations for the Rift and the Boonstones. They have got to move these to places where guilds can actually fight. It's obnoxious. The Malakar Rift, don't even get me started.
Need a hardcore PvP guild to have good PvP. Of course, if you're not in a hardcore PvP guild, you can have some small scale PvP in arenas or some fights in the open world dungeons. But if you want to have good large scale PvP, which is just the major content in this game, there is nothing you can do without a competitive hardcore guild. But if you are then in such a hardcore guild and you are attending to all of those events, then it can quickly feel like a second job. And I saw a lot of posts regarding that on Reddit as well. But if you want to have good PvP, competitive PvP, this is just the only way you have. So smaller guilds won't get any good GVGs and will be completely destroyed in all other open world PvP events.
That is a problem with the game. I'm not sure how you necessarily fix it. Because if you're going to base your game around PvP, and then you're going to worry about the smaller guilds that can't compete in PvP, I don't know, I think that's a slippery slope. Like, I think it is a problem for the game though, and it forces a lot of the casual players to quit.
So what do you do if you want to have good PvP, but you don't want to join a hardcore PvP guild?
You don't.
You can't do good
You can't. You can do arenas.
PvP content, except for arenas, and that's for most people just not enough. So
I feel that you can do the open world dungeons. I think that you can do open world dungeon PvP as long as your guild is active and you get like 6 people from your guild. I think that any guild can come out and do some dungeon PvP. I think they're good with it.
of course, the obvious solution would be to have something like battlegrounds of 10v10 or 20 versus 20. And I really hope they would introduce that with the wargame feature. But here you just create your own lobby with up to 300 players and you have no reward.
This is a W. I know that he's dogging on it right now. This was a huge win for the game. And I think that if Black Desert implemented a system like this, it would have been, oh my God, giga content.
I'm not sure what they intended here with this feature, but this of
course, see, again, he has no idea. He has no concept. Like the amount of content and the amount of fun that you can have with war games is, I mean, shit, it's half the fun of being in a hardcore PvP guild.
Was not a solution what a lot of players were hoping for. So this is already a huge problem, that a lot of people just want to do some PvP, but there's just really no possibility for them. We need to have some kind of a battleground, some kind of a possibility for those kind of players to have good PvP content.
They need to add a spectate feature to the 3v3 arenas, and they need to add a 10v10 game mode.
Okay, so the second major problem...
Or actually 12v12. That way you have two parties.
Which I've heard from everyone I was talking to and I was also reading plenty of times on Reddit, are the alliances. Alliances are just group of guilds which are just fighting together on all open world events, so world bosses or castle sieges and all of that. And it's a nice idea that could bring some political elements and just drama into the game. And to a certain degree that's really good in MMOs. You could write here some really amazing stories between the conflict of certain alliances.
Correct.
But for all this to work, you need to have a system which balances everything out. And this is not really happening in this game. But instead what is happening is that these mega alliances are being created, which are just dominating all the servers. And this is of course just a really huge problem.
I felt like this was a problem before. And sure, there are still people that are like allying people to help them defend the castle. But I have not seen this really be as big of a problem in the last like 2 weeks.
Because
the mega alliances were a much bigger deal when they couldn't when they could mark each other, you know what I mean? Like you're like, oh, I'm gonna feud these targets. Okay, that's annoying. Right, that allowed them to work together, but that's gone now, so like it's harder.
It's just killing the fun for everyone, except maybe for the players who...
I have yet to see a server not run by a Zerg. Okay, so there's a difference between what you are calling a Zerg and what he is calling a mega alliance. Okay, a Zerg is they have more people than you. A mega alliance is like 12 guilds, like over 4 guilds working with one another and coordinating with each other against the game's mechanics to try to exploit the system and get rewards for only them. Okay, a Zerg is like, okay, there could be one alliance and they're bringing like 150 people to every world boss. Yes, they're Zerging you, but they're also like playing by what the game would consider the rules, right? That's just like a get good. This is a get good issue. Bring more people loser, and this is unfair and not fun and helps kill the game.
in these alliances, but for the most part, no one really had.
Yeah, people are telling me to watch Zeroth Siege. Do I have a recording of Zeroth Siege? Does anybody have the VOD? We'll watch that one first. We have a good amount of VOD submissions today. We'll be looking at them next.
As fun of that. So I think the idea is really good, but I haven't seen that really working for a long time. The problem is that a lot of content is designed around alliances. So you can't just simply remove the feature. But you need to find a solution here to balance it a little bit better.
I'm curious if the game would be better if there were no alliance system at all. Or if you could only ally like one other guild. I genuinely... Good luck winning Siege. That's the only drawback. I was just about to say. I'm like, how do you get around the problem with Siege? I think that they could adjust Siege to make it doable, right? There's ways that they could adjust the numbers on the golems, how much damage the gate can take, the buffs for the defending guild, right? Like, there's ways that they could adjust it to help balance it a little bit more. And I think that the game actually probably would be better if you made it like solo guilds or even just 2 guilds working with one another instead of 4. I think the game probably would be better. I'm curious what people think about that, though.
Out.
Also, the amount of drama you would get for splitting up these 4 guild alliances. Oh, man.
To make it fun for everyone. Okay, so...
Yeah, and maybe there's only one alliance just for Siege. You could just do one alliance for Siege. But no, because politically that's cooked. Then they're going to work together. Then you're just encouraging mega alliances. No, you have to fix it for Siege, too. It can't just be... You cannot just make it one alliance for Siege, because then they'll work together at world bosses, too. It needs to be across the board.
Let's sum that up. It's nice to have a guild-centric PvP game.
And I think it would make it more competitive at conflict bosses. I think that, like, if you have to... Having to try to fight 70 people, or 60 people, or even 50 people, is much more stomachable, even for small guilds, and doesn't encourage small guilds to quit. But if they show up to a boss and there's 180 people there, they're probably just going to say, well, f it, we can't catch up to that, and leave.
But there needs to be also PvP content for players who are not in a hardcore PvP guild. And alliances are not functioning as they should, and they probably need a rework in some way. Okay, so the last topic I haven't heard from so many players, but I just want to talk about it because I think it's really important, and that are the character stats. And they are in general really nice. And
I'm going to pause it here because there's a hot girl on the screen. Wait. Okay, there you go.
They are in general really nice in Throne Liberty. You have so many different stats, which gives you just so many possibilities to design your character. And this is just definitely a huge plus for Throne and Liberty. But one big problem here is that the game doesn't explain what certain stats are actually doing. And often the in-game descriptions are even just misleading. I can tell you that more than 50% of the current active player base is not understanding the major stats correctly. They might think they do, but they don't. That's why
the truth is no one has any idea what the is going on with stats. I've heard some wild shit with BDO too, that BDO doesn't explain anything either. That's why we watched that video not too long ago to see how DR was interacting with like the hits. That guy explained it in a super thorough way and was really thorough. I think it cleared it up for a lot of people. The truth is a lot of people have no idea what the endurance is and why it's different from DR, because the way that everybody explained it when we started the game was endurance is DR, and that's not actually the case. And that's just one example.
For example, I've made a lot of videos explaining on how certain stats work.
Wait, was it this guy? Was it his video that we watched? Man, this guy plugs his content really well.
Can just upload a really good video on hit versus evasion. And the problem is that it's really needed because the game is not explaining those stats. So all of the stats, what is attack speed exactly doing? What is damage reduction doing? What is crit doing? What is base damage doing? How big are the diminishing returns? Something like this needs to be somehow visible.
If you don't know what... Okay. If you don't know the difference between... You were either new to MMOs. Well, honestly, you're just new to MMOs in general. Anyone that's ever played an MMO in the past knows the difference between these two stats right here. Not necessarily the best explanation, right? Or not exactly the best example of this problem. However, knowing what And R, this is not this is a better example. Like, wait, what the is a heavy attack, right? Like a new player is going to be like, well, wait, what? How does that work, right? What the hell is going on? What is endurance? How does that interact with my stats, right? Like
in the game. If I can't
critical hit is unique to TNL. What critically striking? Oh God, do I not know what it means? We're talking about critical strike chance, right? Not critical hit chance, which is like critical. Okay, hold on. Critical strike chance is the percentage of your attacks that are critically striking. Critical hit chance is the percent of your critical hits that are actually hitting the opponent. That was my understanding. That's not right. Never mind. He's completely right. No one has any idea what the is going on in this game. What the is critical hit then? Critically striking isn't even a thing in TNL? No, you're right. It's the chance to roll max damage. Well, that's a crit. Well, okay. In TNL, a crit is not just 2 times damage. It's the chance from, okay, if I can do 140 damage or I can do 180 damage, it's the 180 damage. And I think they call it heavy attack. Or no, heavy attack is, yeah, no, heavy is the 2 time. Crit is this. Yeah, heavy would be doing like, 280 damage at a minimum. Right? Do I have this back? Oh my God, bro. He's not wrong. All of this to say, honestly, he's not wrong. How in the do we still not understand how the this works? Okay, so if an attack hits like this, is that heavy? And then this is a crit. Or is it this is a crit and then this is heavy? Right? If the minimum you could hit for is 140. 180 is the crit, 180 times 2 is the crit heavy. Okay. So a heavy attack is the maximum amount of damage. Okay, no. Okay, all right, hold on. A heavy. Okay. I've got it. Okay. So, what a heavy attack means, wait. Heavy attack is an attack that does 2x whatever the damage would have been before. So in this case, 280, a heavy attack could be from 280 to 180 times 2 is 360. Correct. Yes, 360. Okay, so it can go from 280 to 360. Okay, heavy attacks can have anywhere in this range. A crit heavy attack means that you are doing the maximum amount of damage. A crit does not necessarily do 2 times damage. No. But a critical heavy attack is doing the maximum amount of damage. So in this case, crits are 180 and 360. This is complicated as... Oh my God. If you're like me, just build the number up. Just number up good.
See that in game, it's really confusing for players. And when they then see certain videos explaining how certain stats work and real.
So what the is crit? Wait, so crit damage then is just increasing the maximum damage for the skill that it can crit on. Critical hit damage reduction is decreasing the amount of damage that critical strikes are doing to you. Critical damage is the modifier. Yeah, that's what this is. Oh, you guys can't see it. Critical damage is the modifier that increases the maximum range that you can hit at. So if you, again, if we're just using the 140 to 240. I don't know what the fucking example was before. But if we use 140 to 240 and you have a bunch of critical damage, now you will be able to hit for 14% higher, or I don't know what the scaling is actually for this, but like you'd be doing 260 on crits instead of 240. I'm pretty sure that's what crit damage is. Crit damage reduction is reducing the amount of damage they're doing when they're critically striking you. Okay. And you can crit heal too. That's true. That's true. That's why healers like to build dex. Is it? Or is it wisdom? Or I don't know. That's why healers like to build heavy too.
Guys,
You can heavy attack heal too. That's why healers love heavy.
maybe that they build their character completely wrong. It's obviously, again, really frustrating and makes them want to quit.
I haven't seen anybody quit over the fact that the game is complex. I think that it helps engage people in learning the game systems. Is it complex? Sure. But you can grasp it. It's not like it's like, you know, this isn't some crazy hard system. It's complicated, sure. But I think that a lot of the reason people like TNL is because like the build paths in the game are incredibly diverse and there's a lot you can do with it.
Hello chat, what size air fryer?
Anyway, and so there's the build paths are incredibly diverse and there's a lot you can do with it. That means they're also complex. And the reason the build paths are complex is because the systems in the game are complex, right? The damage systems. I don't necessarily think this is a problem that's making people quit.
They just need a good way of explaining those stats in the
Just my
game.
thought.
I'm not sure like how they would do that, but from the first place they could update their descriptions. That would already help a lot. So not a lot of people were talking about this, but I think it's still really frustrating for a lot of people, even though they don't realize it. And I just think Throne Liberty does here a really bad job on explaining those stats. So
What up,
these are
Georgie?
just the biggest, most talked about issues. Of course, there's more like perfect Q block scripting, performance during large-scale PvP battles, time gating stuff, pay to win.
Okay, anybody that's complaining about performance in large-scale PvP battles are literally brand new to PvP and have never PvP'd in another MMO ever. These people are morons.
Elements.
I think that TNL has some of the best large-scale performance I have ever seen in any game. Is there lag? A little bit. It's not that crazy. It's really not that bad. Especially when you compare it to some of the other games. Some of the shit that I've been through, you guys have no idea.
No
I'm not shadowboxing people all the time.
assists for healers, balancing,
Thanks
and
for the
the
Prime
list
sub,
goes
Celsius.
on. But these were just
Appreciate
the
you
most
dropping it in here,
discussed
man.
and mentioned points from your side. I really love this game and I wanted to succeed, but the devs just needs to focus on those kind of problems. Otherwise, I don't see here the trend stopping soon. But what do you think? What are the biggest problems right now in Throne and Liberty? Let me know in the comments. If you like the content and want to support me, don't forget to like and subscribe.
This is a great YouTuber. Keep watching this man. He's very important for the community. I've watched 2 of his videos now. They're both really good. Really good. I didn't agree with every single one of his takes, but they were really, really good.